A billionaire took his girlfriend to dinner, but when he saw his pregnant ex-wife, his heart shattered. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We have noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It is quick, it is free, and it helps us continue bringing you great stories every week. Your support truly means everything. Let us keep this channel growing together. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us get back to our main character. He thought the past was buried until the storm put her back in his arms. The rain was soft at first, whispering over the glass windows of the Meridian, one of the most exclusive rooftop restaurants in New York City. Inside, golden light spilled across polished tables and crystal glasses. At a corner table, Nathan Hale, 38, billionaire founder of Hale Industries, sat, across from Vanessa Cole, the elegant woman everyone in the room could recognize from magazine covers. Nathan lifted his glass of wine, but his mind was elsewhere. To anyone watching, he looked like a man who had it all: money, charm, control. Yet behind his calm expression there was the quiet fatigue of someone who had learned how to survive without feeling. Vanessa leaned forward, her smile deliberate. "You are not even listening, are you?" she teased. Nathan forced a polite grin. "Just thinking about tomorrow's board meeting." She rolled her eyes. "You work even at dinner." He was about to answer when a flash of motion outside the wide window caught his attention. Down on the rain-soaked street, a woman was standing near the curb, clutching a worn suitcase that had lost one wheel. Her hair was plastered to her face, her coat thin against the wind. For a moment, she looked up just long enough for the streetlight to reveal her face. Nathan froze. His breath vanished. It was Lila, the woman he had not seen since the day their marriage ended 3 years ago. The noise of the restaurant disappeared. He could only hear the rain pounding against the glass. Vanessa followed his gaze. "Nathan, what is it?" He blinked, trying to recover, but his voice cracked. I think I know her." Vanessa frowned, but Nathan had already stood. The chair legs scraped the marble floor. Without a word, he walked toward the elevator, ignoring the startled looks around him. Outside, the cold hit him like a wave. The storm had grown heavier, puddles shining under the neon lights. Lila was still there, trying to fix the suitcase, her body trembling. Nathan stepped into the rain. "Lila?" His voice was soft, unsure. She turned, eyes wide. For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. Then she whispered, "Nathan, what are you doing here? You are soaked." He took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. It smelled of cedar and expensive cologne, yet in that moment it felt human again. "I am fine," she insisted, clutching the suitcase. "Please, just go back inside." But Nathan's gaze had already fallen to the curve of her stomach beneath the wet fabric. The world seemed to tilt. "Lila, are you?" She shook her head quickly, fear flashing across her eyes. "It does not matter. Just let me be." Vanessa's voice echoed from the restaurant doorway, sharp and impatient. "Nathan, what are you doing?" She made her choice. Nathan looked back once, then returned his eyes to Lila. The rain streamed down his face, mixing with the heat rising in his chest. "She is still my responsibility," he said quietly. He reached for her suitcase, lifting it from her shaking hands. "Come on, you should not be out here alone." For the first time in years, Lila did not argue. She just watched him, stunned, as he opened the door of the waiting car and guided her inside. As the city lights blurred behind the glass, Nathan realized that the night he thought would be just another dinner had just reopened the one chapter of his life he could never forget. The car moved through the wet streets, the hum of the engine filling the silence between them. Nathan sat beside Lila, his jaw tight, his mind running faster than the wipers on the windshield. The city lights shimmered on her face, pale and tired. She kept her eyes on her hands, holding the suitcase close, as if afraid that even this small piece of her life could be taken away. He spoke first. "Where are you staying?" Lila hesitated. "Just a few nights at the shelter on Chinth. It is temporary." Nathan's throat tightened. "You do not have to stay there. I can." She interrupted before he could finish. "No, Nathan, please do not offer me anything. I can take care of myself." The words cut deeper than she knew. For years, he had believed she left because she wanted more. But seeing her now, shivering, wearing his soaked jacket, made that story collapse. When the car stopped in front of the shelter, Lila reached for the handle, but Nathan gently caught her wrist. Lila, wait. Tell me the truth. Why did you disappear? You did not even let me say goodbye. Her voice trembled. You would not have listened back then. You were busy proving to the world how untouchable you were. I could not keep up. He stared at her, rain still dripping from his hair. I thought you left because of money. She gave a soft, bitter laugh. Money. Nathan. I left because I was drowning. Her eyes filled, but she blinked the tears away. And you never noticed. She opened the door and stepped out into the rain. Before he could follow, she turned back. Do not come here again. Please. Nathan watched as she walked toward the old brick building, its flickering light sign barely visible through the downpour. The door closed behind her, leaving him alone in the car with the echo of her words. The driver glanced at him in the rearview mirror. Sir, should I take you home? Nathan shook his head. Drive around for a while. As the car moved again, his thoughts spiraled back to the last time he saw her. The argument in their penthouse, the shouting, the final sound of the door slamming. He remembered her face then, pale and silent, standing in the doorway like someone already halfway gone. He rubbed his temples, whispering to himself, what did I miss? Hours later, back in his apartment overlooking the skyline, he poured himself a drink, but did not touch it. The city below glowed, indifferent to his unrest. On the couch lay his phone, lighting up with a message from Vanessa. You left me there, Nathan. We need to talk. He stared at it, then turned the phone face down. His mind was somewhere else. He opened his closet and saw the empty space where his jacket should have been. The one now keeping Lila warm. That image stayed with him through the night, the woman he once loved, carrying a burden she refused to share, standing alone under the rain. The next morning, Nathan was at his office before sunrise. The staff greeted him cautiously, sensing the tension that clung to him. He worked in silence, signing papers, staring out the window between calls. But every time he blinked, he saw her face. By noon, he could not stand it any longer. He called his security director. I need footage from last night, he said. Outside the Meridian, around 9 o'clock. A woman with a suitcase. Find out where she went after that. The man hesitated. Sir, may I ask why? Nathan's tone left no room for questions. Just do it. That evening, he received a call. We found her, Mr. Hale. She checked into the Haven Women's Center on 9th Avenue. Works part-time as a bookkeeper there. Nathan closed his eyes for a moment, the weight of realization settling in. She was not lost. She was surviving, quietly, away from him. He set the phone down, exhaling slowly. Haven, he murmured, the word almost a prayer. Outside his window, the rain had stopped, but the streets still glistened like mirrors. Somewhere in that reflection, he saw the man he had become and the man he used to be before he lost her. Tomorrow, he decided, he would go to her again, not as the billionaire who wanted control, but as the man who finally wanted to understand. The next morning, the sun rose behind a gray curtain of clouds. Nathan parked his car across the street from the Haven Women's Center. The building looked small compared to the skyscrapers he was used to. Faded bricks, peeling paint, and a paper sign taped to the glass door that read, Warm meals served daily. He hesitated before stepping out. For the first time in years, Nathan Hale, the man who controlled million-dollar contracts and global mergers, felt unsure of what to say. He adjusted his tie, then stopped, realizing how out of place it looked. Here. He removed it and left it on the passenger seat. Inside the shelter, the air smelled faintly of coffee and detergent. Women talked quietly at folding tables while volunteers served oatmeal and bread. Behind the counter, Nathan spotted her, Lila. She was pouring coffee for an older woman, her hair tied back, the same calm gentleness in her movements that once drew him in years ago. The sight made something twist in his chest. When she turned and saw him standing by the door, the smile on her face vanished. Nathan, she said softly, almost to herself. You should not be here. He approached slowly, hands in his pockets. I needed to return your suitcase. You left it in the car. She folded her arms. You could have dropped it off with the staff. I could have, he said, but then I would not get to ask how you are. Her eyes hardened. I told you not to come back. He nodded. voice low. I know, but I could not stop thinking about you. Lila glanced around. People were beginning to notice the tall man in the expensive coat. You are making people uncomfortable. This is not your world anymore. I do not care about that, he said quietly. You should not be working like this. You look exhausted. She exhaled, setting the coffee pot down. Do not pity me, Nathan. I am not your problem. He looked around at the worn walls, the tables crowded with women and children. I am not pitying you. I am realizing how much I never understood. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them carried all the words left unsaid over the past 3 years. Lila finally broke the silence. What do you want from me? I want to help, he said. Whatever you need, money, a better place to stay, a doctor, anything. She shook her head, eyes flashing with anger. You think you can fix everything with money. That is why I left, Nathan. You built walls with your success and called it love. The words hit him harder than she could imagine. That is not fair, he said. No, she replied, voice trembling. It is honest. She turned away and began stacking empty trays, her movements sharp and deliberate. Nathan stood there for a long moment, unsure of how to reach her. He finally placed the small suitcase on the counter and whispered, At least keep the jacket. It is still raining out there. Then he left. Outside, the sky began to drizzle again. Nathan stood by his car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. He could still hear her voice echoing in his mind. You built walls and called it love. Later that evening, he called his assistant. I want you to send a donation to the Haven Women's Center, he said. Anonymous. Make sure they have everything they need. Understood, sir. Should I attach your name to it? No, Nathan said. They do not need to know. After hanging up, he sat alone in his office, staring at the rain streaking down the glass. The city looked endless from his window, shining towers, lights reflecting in every direction, but he had never felt smaller. On the desk beside him lay a photograph from years ago. Him and Lila on their wedding day, laughing, both of them younger, unaware of what the future would steal. He traced her face with his thumb, whispering, I do not know how to make it right, but I will try. That night, he could not sleep. Every sound in the apartment reminded him of what he had lost, the silence after the elevator door closed, the echo of his own footsteps, the empty half of the bed. By dawn, Nathan had already made a decision. He would not give up this time. Tomorrow, he would go back not to rescue her with wealth, but to understand the woman she had become. Outside, the rain began to fall harder, as if the city itself was washing away his pride. The next day, Nathan returned to the Haven Center just after noon. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets coated in a thin layer of mist. He carried a paper bag from a nearby cafe, unsure whether he had come to bring lunch or courage. Inside, the center was quieter than before. Lila was at a small desk near the back, bent over a stack of invoices. The pale afternoon light from the window touched her face, making her look even more fragile than he remembered. Nathan took a slow breath and stepped closer. I brought lunch, he said gently. The coffee here looked like motor oil yesterday. I thought you could use something better. Lila looked up, startled. Her eyes softened for a second, then hardened again. Nathan, you should not keep showing up like this. I am not here to interfere, he said, placing the bag on the desk. I just wanted to thank you for yesterday, for reminding me that I am still human. That last sentence caught her off guard. She blinked, unsure what to say. You are not the man I used to. No. Maybe I am trying to remember who that man was, he said quietly. She sighed. You cannot fix the past. I am not trying to fix it, Nathan replied. I am trying to understand it. They stood in silence, the sound of distant chatter filling the room. Lila finally sat back down, rubbing her temples. If you really want to help, donate to the shelter. That is it, nothing more. I already did, he admitted. Her head snapped up. You what? Do not worry, he said quickly. It was anonymous. No one knows. I just wanted to make sure the roof does not leak again. For the first time, Lila's expression softened. You remembered, she whispered. Of course I did. You used to complain every time it rained. A faint smile tugged at her lips before she caught herself and looked away. You should go, Nathan. People will talk if they see you here again. He nodded, but instead of leaving, he pulled something from his coat, pocket a small envelope, slightly worn. "I found this in one of the boxes when I cleaned my office," he said. "It was addressed to me, but I never opened it." Her eyes widened. "Where did you get that?" "It was tucked between old project files. I think you sent it before you left." She froze, color draining from her face. "Nathan, please do not read it." "I already did," he said softly. "You wrote about the miscarriage, about how you could not face me because you thought I would see you as weak." Tears welled in her eyes. "I wanted to tell you, but you were never home. You were always chasing something bigger." He took a careful step closer. "And I thought you left because I was not enough. We were both wrong." Her voice cracked. "You do not know what those months were like. I could not breathe, Nathan. Every room in that penthouse reminded me of what we lost." He reached out but stopped himself just short of touching her. "I know. And I am sorry you went through it alone." Lila wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "You cannot just show up years later and expect me to forgive you." "I am not asking for forgiveness," he said, his voice low and steady. "I am asking for a chance to make things right in any way you will let me." She looked at him for a long time, searching his face for the man she used to love. "You do not even know if this baby is yours," she said quietly. Nathan held her gaze. "It does not matter whose it is. You are standing in the rain again, and I cannot walk away this time." The room was silent except for the faint hum of the old heater. For the first time in years, Lila saw sincerity in his eyes without the armor of wealth or pride. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "If you really mean that, then prove it. Not with money, with time." Nathan nodded slowly. "Then I will start by coming back tomorrow." As he turned to leave, Lila watched him go, torn between fear and hope. Outside, the sky was clearing, and sunlight broke through the clouds, falling across the wet pavement like a quiet promise that the storm was not forever. The following morning, the air outside the Haven Center felt different. The rain had stopped completely, and the sunlight spilled softly across the cracked sidewalk. Nathan arrived early, carrying 2 paper cups of coffee. He stood by the door for a moment, watching people pass, trying to convince himself that showing up again was not a mistake. When he finally went inside, Lila was already at work, sorting through receipts. She looked up as soon as she heard his footsteps. "You really came back," she said quietly, almost as if she did not believe it. Nathan handed her the coffee. "You said to prove it with time." "I am here." Lila hesitated, then accepted the cup. "One day does not mean anything." "I know," he said, "but I will keep showing up until it does." For the next hour, Nathan helped wherever he could. He moved boxes of canned goods, fixed a broken shelf, and repaired the old heater that had been rattling for weeks. The volunteers whispered among themselves, surprised to see a man in a tailored suit tightening bolts and carrying crates without a complaint. When they finally took a short break, Lila sat on the steps outside, sipping her coffee. Nathan joined her, keeping a respectful distance. "You really do not have to do all this," she said softly. "I am not doing it for you," he replied. "I am doing it because it feels right." She gave him a small, skeptical smile. "You never used to talk like that." "Maybe I never had to face what losing you taught me," he said. They sat in silence, watching the city wake up. For the first time in years, their quiet did not feel like distance. Later that day, as Nathan was about to leave, a familiar voice stopped him at the door. "So this is where you have been hiding." He turned. Vanessa stood there in a red coat, her expression sharp and cold. "You did not return my calls," she said. Lila stiffened. The air grew heavy. Nathan stepped forward, his tone calm. "Vanessa, now is not a good time." "Oh, I can see that," she said, looking Lila up and down. "You left me at dinner for this." "Do not do this," Nathan warned. But Vanessa's voice grew louder. "You always talked about unfinished business. I guess this is it, the poor ex-wife who makes you feel like a hero." Lila turned away, her face pale. "It is fine, Nathan. She is right. I do not belong in your world." Nathan's patience snapped. "That is enough, Vanessa. This is not about pity, and it is not about image. It is about decency, something you clearly do not understand." Vanessa's eyes flashed with anger. "You are throwing everything away for her." "If everything I had meant losing my humanity, then yes," he said firmly. The room went silent. Vanessa stared at him for a long second before storming out, her heels striking hard against the floor. Lila looked at him, shaken. You did not have to defend me like that. Yes, I did, Nathan said. Because for the first time in years, I am proud of what I am doing. She blinked back tears, caught between gratitude and disbelief. You have changed. Maybe I am finally becoming the man you always wanted me to be. Lila looked down at her hands. It is not that simple, Nathan. Change takes more than words. He nodded. Then let me show you. For the next few weeks, Nathan kept coming back. He worked quietly, helping the center repair broken pipes, repaint walls, and install new lighting. He never spoke about money, but every time something needed fixing, a contractor would appear the next morning, paid in full. Lila began to see the difference not in what he said, but in how he acted. When the shelter's boiler broke in the middle of a cold night, Nathan showed up with blankets and stayed until morning. When one of the residents went into labor, he drove them to the hospital himself. Each time, Lila watched him, torn between the memories of the man who once shut her out and the one now standing beside her, without expecting anything in return. One evening, as they locked up the center, she turned to him. You really are not giving up, are you? Nathan smiled faintly. Not on you. Not this time. For a brief moment, the tension between them softened. The air felt lighter, almost warm. Then Lila looked away, whispering, Be careful, Nathan. Hope can hurt more than loss. He nodded, his gaze steady. Then let me be the one who risks it. As she walked home through the fading light, Lila felt something unfamiliar stirring inside her, something she thought she had buried long ago. Maybe it was hope, maybe it was fear, or maybe, for the first time in years, it was both. Weeks passed, and the winter air grew colder, but inside the Haven Center, life began to change. The once dim and cracked walls now gleamed with fresh paint. The kitchen smelled of warm soup instead of rusted pipes, and every light bulb that had flickered was now glowing steady. Nathan had kept his word. He came back every morning, worked quietly, and never drew attention to himself. The volunteers started to treat him like one of their own, not the billionaire who had walked in from another world, but just a man trying to help. Lila noticed it most in the small things. He learned the names of every woman at the shelter, listened to their stories without judgment, and smiled when they teased him for how awkward he looked holding a paint roller. One evening, after most of the volunteers had gone, Lila stayed late to balance the shelter's accounts. Nathan walked in, sleeves rolled up, carrying 2 cups of hot tea. You have been staring at those papers for hours, he said gently. Take a break. She accepted the cup, her fingers brushing his for a second. The touch startled her, though she did not pull away. You do not have to stay this late, she said softly. I am not here because I have to, he replied. I am here because I want to. Lila looked down at the papers, unable to meet his eyes. You always say the right things now. Maybe I finally learned how to mean them, he said. The room fell quiet, only the sound of rain tapping against the window. Nathan's voice broke the silence. Lila, I need to ask you something. The baby, is it mine? She froze. Her breath caught in her throat. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she shook her head slowly. No, Nathan. He was someone I met after us. He left before he even knew. Nathan nodded, his jaw tightening. Does he know you are alone now? No, she said, her voice trembling. And it does not matter. I am used to doing things alone. He leaned. Closer, his tone firm but soft. You should not have to be. Tears welled in her eyes. Nathan, please, do not make promises you cannot keep. I am not promising, he said. I am choosing. There is a difference. She looked up at him, searching for even a trace of pride or pity, but found none. Only sincerity. Later that week, the Haven Center hosted a small fundraiser dinner. Nathan attended quietly, sitting in the back while Lila spoke to the crowd about the center's mission. Her voice carried a strength he had not heard before. She talked about resilience, about women finding hope again, and as she spoke, Nathan realized how much he admired her not out of guilt, but out of respect. When the dinner ended, a few reporters recognized Nathan and tried to approach him for photos. He politely declined. This night is not about me, he said. It is about them. The next day, however, photos of him and Lila appeared online anyway. Headlines began to spread. Billionaire Nathan Hale spotted with ex-wife at shelter event. Vanessa's name appeared in one article, quoted with spiteful comments. Lila saw the stories first. She stormed into the shelter office, her hands shaking as she held the newspaper. "You said this was not about publicity." Nathan's voice was steady. "It was not me. I never," she interrupted, hurt flashing across her face. "This is exactly what I was afraid of. You think good intentions erase the power you have, but people like me pay the price for your kindness." Nathan took a step forward, his voice breaking. "Lila, please listen. I will fix this." Her eyes filled with tears. "You cannot fix perception, Nathan. You never could." She walked out, leaving him standing there in silence. That night, Nathan sat alone in his car outside the shelter, watching the lights flicker inside. He could see her through the window, moving from table to table, pretending to be fine. He wanted to go in, to say something, anything, but he knew she needed space. He leaned back, closing his eyes. For years, he had thought that money could control every outcome, but this time he realized the truth, love, and trust were not transactions to win. They were choices to earn, one fragile moment at a time. He opened his eyes, whispering to himself, "I will not let her slip away again." The deepest secrets are about to change everything. Subscribe now to catch the dramatic twist that is coming in the next chapter. The next morning, the city woke under a pale sky. The gossip from the headlines had spread faster than the rain, and by the time Nathan reached his office, his assistant was already waiting with a worried expression. "Sir, the press is calling non-stop," she said. "They want a statement about you and Mrs. Hale." Nathan set his briefcase down. "There is no statement. Tell them the story is false, and that we have nothing to say." He tried to focus on work, but every word Lila had said echoed in his mind. "People like me pay the price for your kindness." It haunted him. He had never intended to hurt her again, yet somehow, his world always seemed to drag hers into the spotlight. By afternoon, he could not stand the silence of the office any longer. He left without telling anyone and drove back to the Haven Center. When he arrived, the sky was heavy with clouds again. Lila was outside, sweeping the steps, her hair pulled back beneath a gray scarf. The moment she saw him, her hands froze on the broom. "You should not be here," she said quietly. "I know," he replied, stepping closer, "but I had to see you." She sighed. "The board wants to suspend my position for a few weeks. Donations dropped after that article came out. They think I brought scandal to the center." Nathan's chest tightened. "That is not fair. I will make a public apology. I will tell them the truth." "No," she said firmly. "If you do that, it will only make things worse. You cannot fix everything, Nathan. Not this time." He took a slow breath. "Then at least let me stand beside you when it gets hard." Lila looked at him for a long moment, her eyes tired but kind. "You already did enough by trying." The wind carried her words away, leaving only the sound of the street behind them. Nathan reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the old envelope again, the letter she had written years ago, but he had only just read. "You said you left because you could not breathe," he said softly. "I finally understand that now. I do not want to trap you again, Lila. I just want you to know that I see you, truly see you." Her eyes filled with tears. "I never wanted you to be perfect, Nathan. I just wanted you to be present." He nodded, his voice low. "Then let me be that now, even if all I can do is stand quietly beside you." For the first time in years, she did not push him away. She simply whispered, "Maybe it is time we stop running from what broke us." As the first drops of rain began to fall, Nathan stepped forward, and together they stood under the gray sky. Two people who had once lost everything, now beginning to face the storm together. The rain fell harder that night, washing the city in streaks of silver. Inside the Haven Center, the lights flickered as thunder rolled overhead. Nathan had stayed behind to help board up one of the broken windows, while Lila finished packing donations for families who would arrive in the morning. They worked in silence, the storm echoing through the hallways. When the final box was sealed, Lila turned to him. "You do not have to stay, Nathan. The roads will flood if you wait too long." He looked up from the window, rainwater dripping from his hands. "Then I will stay until it stops." She hesitated, wanting to protest, but her voice softened instead. "You never knew when to walk away." "Not when it mattered. He said quietly. Lightning flashed, and for a moment the room filled with white light. Lila's face looked fragile yet calm. She placed a hand over her stomach, breathing through a sudden wave of pain. Nathan noticed immediately. Lila, what is it? Her voice trembled. I think something is wrong. Within seconds, Nathan was by her side. The color drained from her face as she gripped the table for balance. It is early, she whispered. It is not time yet. Nathan's heart pounded. We are going to the hospital. Now. She shook her head weakly. The bridge floods when it rains like this. It is too dangerous. I will not let you risk it, he said, already taking off his coat to wrap around her shoulders. She tried to argue, but he lifted her gently, carrying her toward the door. The storm battered against them as they stepped outside, wind slicing through the street like knives of water. Nathan shouted to the nearest volunteer to call ahead for help. By the time they reached his car, Lila's contractions had grown stronger. She clutched his arm, her voice barely audible. You do not have to do this. Yes, I do, Nathan said, because I should have been there the first time you needed me. I will not make that mistake again. The drive felt endless. The city blurred past in flashes of red lights and rain. Nathan's hands gripped the wheel, his knuckles white, every muscle tense with fear. When they finally reached the hospital, nurses rushed to help. Lila was wheeled away, her hand slipping from his. Nathan followed until the doors closed between them, leaving him standing in the corridor, drenched and shaking. Hours passed. The storm outside began to fade, but inside the waiting room, time moved slower than ever. Nathan sat hunched over, staring at the floor, his jacket soaked, his mind replaying every choice he had ever made. Finally, a doctor approached. She is stable now, he said, gently. It was close, but she and the baby are safe. Nathan exhaled a breath he did not realize he was holding. Can I see her? The doctor nodded. When he entered the quiet hospital room, Lila was lying in bed, pale but awake. In the bassinet beside her, the baby slept peacefully, wrapped in a small blue blanket. Nathan stepped closer, his voice barely a whisper. He is perfect. Lila smiled faintly. He is not yours, Nathan. Nathan reached for the edge of the bassinet, his eyes soft. Maybe not by blood, but he is a part of you. That is enough. For the first time, she did not argue. She just reached out and took his hand, their fingers intertwining as the sound of rain faded into silence. In that quiet moment, Nathan understood. Love was not something you earned with wealth or power. It was something you chose, again and again, even when the storm never stopped. A year later, spring had returned to the city. The sun poured through the glass windows of the newly rebuilt Haven Foundation, the very place that had once struggled to survive. Its new nameplate read, the Lila Hale Foundation, a home for new beginnings. Inside the main hall, people filled the seats for the opening ceremony. Volunteers, residents, and donors all gathered to celebrate what this building now stood for: hope, second chances, and compassion that money alone could never buy. Nathan stood near the entrance, watching quietly as Lila carried her baby, now almost 1 year old, across the stage. Her smile was gentle but strong, the kind of smile that comes from having walked through fire and survived it. The audience applauded, and Nathan felt his throat tighten. When the speeches ended, Lila spotted him near the back of the room. She made her way over slowly, her son resting against her shoulder. You did this, she said softly. He shook his head. No, you did. I only gave what you inspired. She looked around at the polished floors, the bright walls, and the laughter echoing through the room. It used to be just a shelter, she said. Now it is a home, for them, and maybe for us too. Nathan's smile was small, almost shy. If you will let me, I would like to help keep it that way. Lila handed him the baby for the first time. The child reached out, touching Nathan's collar with curious fingers. He seems to like you, she said. Nathan laughed quietly. Then he has good instincts. They stood together for a moment, surrounded by the hum of conversation and music. Outside, sunlight reflected off the glass doors, catching on something mounted beside the entrance, a framed piece of fabric, dark and worn from rain. It was Nathan's old coat, the one he had wrapped around her that night on the street. Beneath it, a small plaque read, "One act of kindness can rebuild a life." Lila followed his gaze and smiled. I kept it, she said. It reminded me that even when we lose everything, there are still people who choose to care. Nathan turned toward her, his voice steady. Then let me keep choosing you, Lila. Every day, for as long as you will let me. For a moment, the noise of the crowd faded away. She looked at him, then at the baby in his arms, and nodded. Then let us build this home together. The room filled again with light and applause as they walked toward the stage. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, neither of them was afraid of it. As Nathan handed her the microphone for the final speech, his heart felt calm. He finally understood what redemption truly meant. It was not about undoing the past, but about creating something better from its ashes. Outside, the city moved on, unaware of the quiet miracle that had unfolded within those walls. A story of loss, forgiveness, and a love reborn through grace. Thank you for joining us for this cinematic adventure. If you want more untold or real stories of billionaire love and redemption, please subscribe and choose your next true heart journey on your screen now.